A Bankai is a Shinigami's trump card, and it usually takes 10 years for a Shinigami to obtain it. However, certain Soul Reapers such as Rukia have found cheat codes on how to obtain it faster, and this led me to question if this is really fair, and that's why in this video we will be trying to figure out if Rukia deserved a Bankai or if it was simply given to her because she is a fan favorite. In the Thousand Year Blood War arc, Rukia was sent to the Royal Palace, and there she would also undergo Squad Zero training, and I am pretty sure that we all know how much of a big deal that is. After finishing her training, Rukia descends to the Serete, and just based on her mannerism, you could tell that her confidence was through the roof. And what better way to have her showcase her newly gained power than by having her face off against Asnot. See, Rukia explains that because of her training in the Royal Palace, she was able to draw out the true power of her Zanpakuto. Initially, we were under the impression that Soda no Shirayuki was a sword that emits freezing air from its tip. However, that was false. The true power of Soda no Shirayuki lies in the fact that it is a Zanpakuto that lowers its user's body temperature below freezing, giving Rukia the means to temporarily kill her body by controlling her reishi. Essentially, all of the components that make up the human body freeze and cease motion, except for her nerves, which Asnot ends up taken advantage of by exploiting Rukia's optic nerve. However, luckily for her, Byakuya arrives and saves her behind, and I have to be completely honest here. At this point in the story, I got kind of frustrated because I thought that Byakuya would end up rescuing Rukia and in the process steal all of the glory from her. But to my surprise, Byakuya gives Rukia his blessings to defeat Asnot. And in a shocking twist of events, Rukia drops a bombshell. Never would I imagine that Rukia Kuchiki would utter the word Bankai, but surprisingly, she actually does. After pointing the tip of her blade at Asnot, Rukia activates her Bankai, Haka no Togame. In English, it translates to white haze punishment. When Rukia unleashes her Bankai, both her physical appearance and clothing changes. She is seen to be wearing a kimono, and her skin takes on a pale tone. Upon its release, a pillar of mist rises up in the air, and anyone within its influence is frozen solid. Next, the body of the victim also starts to crumble. There is no denying that Rukia's Bankai is very overpowered. But despite that, it has a lot of weaknesses. For example, she can't use her Bankai under extreme conditions. This is because if Rukia wants to undo her Bankai, she has to raise her body temperature back to normal, and this takes quite a while. This means that she is left vulnerable to an enemy's attack, and also if Rukia is not cautious, she can commit suicide. This is because if she does not undo her Bankai slowly, then her body literally starts to break down. If you put all of these weaknesses into consideration, it makes perfect sense to assume that the amount of times Rukia can use her Bankai is limited. My main problem with Rukia attaining a Bankai is the fact that it was never explained how she got it. All we are left to do is speculate. Who knows, maybe Rukia was doing her own training before the Thousand Year Blood War even begun and had already achieved Bankai, although I find that hard to believe. Or maybe she might have attained her Bankai through her Squad Zero training. Even though there was no indication of this, it makes a lot of sense because Nimaya is the creator of the Zanpakuto. It wouldn't be impossible for him to know a shortcut for obtaining a Bankai, and not to mention, Ichibei was the one to come up with the name Zanpakuto, as well as Shikai and Bankai, so I am pretty sure that he had something to do with it. Now, I will admit, Rukia isn't the only one to use a shortcut to achieve Bankai. Kisuke Urahara created a method that allowed Soul Reapers to obtain Bankai in 3 days, and this was how both him and Ichigo achieved it. However, unlike Rukia, they were more deserving of obtaining a Bankai, and this is because Kisuke actually had to do the research and also use himself as a lab rat in order to check if the method actually worked. And as we all know, it was a necessity for Ichigo to obtain Bankai. Without its power, he wouldn't have been able to rescue Rukia, and he also puts his life on the line to obtain it. Now, here's a question for you guys. If Rukia can obtain a Bankai through mysterious means, then why doesn't Kubo-sensei just give every other assistant captain a Bankai? I mean, think about it. If Rukia can obtain it in just a couple of days, then why would the other Soul Reapers wait 10 years to achieve it when they can just do the same thing? Sounds fair, right? Even though this is a great argument, I have to admit that it would be a terrible idea because, to put it simply, it would cheapen the value of Bankai. This is a sacred technique of the Soul Society, and only the most skilled Soul Reapers are worthy of having one. I would personally love to know why exactly Kubo-sensei decided to give Rukia a Bankai. Was it because she was a deuteragonist, a fan favorite, or was it because she took a lot of L's and because of that, maybe Kubo took sympathy on her and gave her a Bankai? And there's another question to be asked. Was it really necessary for Rukia to obtain a Bankai? I mean, think about it. Byakuya didn't die, and he also underwent Squad Zero training. He was in good health, so this meant that he could have defeated Asnot by himself. Anyway, when Rukia was given a Bankai, I was really surprised. It came out of nowhere, but I have to admit, when I took the time to think about it, it made sense because it was the last arc, and maybe Kubo-sensei wanted her to go out with a bang. Look, I don't really have an answer for if Rukia deserved a Bankai or not, but I am willing to let her having one slide because it hasn't reached its full potential. And also, as I previously mentioned before, using it comes with a huge risk. As a matter of fact, the biggest risk of all, her life. To put it simply, her Bankai is a double-edged sword. Obtaining a Bankai was one of the best things to happen to Rukia because she was able to become a captain. Plus, she got to prove her strength. In addition, she also makes her brother proud. And most importantly, with a Bankai, she is no longer a liability. And this means that she can finally fight side by side with Ichigo and Renji. Rukia has been snubbed countless of times in the story of Bleach, even to the point where her older brother was preventing her from becoming a vice captain. So I guess one win doesn't hurt.
Bye bye!